Ever wondered why some companies just seem to innovate effortlessly while others get tangled up in their own red tape? Well, it turns out their success or failure, it's not an accident. It's actually written right into their organizational blueprint, a kind of master plan that quietly decides their fate. So let's dive in and see how that works.
You know the feeling, right? You're using a new app or some piece of software and it just feels disjointed, clunky. The part where you buy something doesn't talk to the part where you get customer service, and every screen has a totally different look and feel. This isn't just a case of bad design. It's actually a clue, a symptom of a much deeper truth about how companies really work.
And here it is. This is that truth. It was first spotted by a computer scientist named Melvin Conway way back in 1967. It's called Conway's Law, and it's a really powerful idea. Basically, it says that the systems we build end up being a mirror image of how we as people communicate. Yeah, those lines and boxes on our org chart, they literally become the lines of code in our software. It's a fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes frustrating reality. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the law in action. The technical design of a product winds up being a direct reflection of the social design of the company. It's not really a technical decision at all. It's a social one that just has massive technical consequences. Your company's communication silos literally become silos inside the product you're building. So that's the big question, right? If we're destined to just build systems that look exactly like our organizations, maybe the real hack here isn't about designing better systems. Maybe it's about designing better organizations. Let's figure out how we can take this law and turn it from a frustrating problem into a seriously powerful tool. All right, so if we're going to get a handle on our organizational destiny, we've got to start with the basics. We need to understand the fundamental building blocks, the different flavors of organizations that exist out there. And for that, a great place to start is with the work of a theorist named Henry Mintzberg. He basically broke down any organization's anatomy into 5 key parts. You've got the leadership at the top. He called that the strategic apex. Then at the bottom, you have the operating core, the folks actually doing the day-to-day work. Connecting them, you've got your middle line of managers, and then off to the sides are 2 other groups, the technostructure, who are the analysts that standardize work, and the support staff, who provide all the indirect services. Now here's where it gets interesting. Depending on which of those 5 parts has the most gravity or pulls the hardest, the whole organization gets shaped in a different way. Mintzberg laid out these 5 basic configurations, and each one is suited for a very different kind of purpose. Let's just look at 2 polar opposites to really see what this means. On one hand, you have a machine bureaucracy. Think of a classic car factory. It's all about efficiency, stability, and standardization. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got an adhocracy. Think of a wild R&D lab. It's built for pure innovation in a totally unpredictable world where everyone coordinates through constant talking and collaboration. So the big takeaway here? The structure has to fit the job. Structure follows strategy and the world it lives in. But it's never as simple as just picking a model off the shelf. Because underneath it all, every single organization is dealing with this constant, fundamental tug of war. And a couple of researchers, Lawrence and Lorsch, really put their finger on it. They saw these 2 forces pulling in opposite directions. First, you've got differentiation. This is the force that wants every team to be super specialized. You want your engineers thinking like engineers, and your marketing team thinking like customers. But then you've got integration. This is the force that says, hey, all you super specialized teams, you've got to work together to actually ship a product. So you see the problem? One force is pulling everyone apart into their little expert groups, and the other is trying to stitch them all back together. And here's the kicker. Their research backed up what we all kind of feel in our gut. The more specialized and different your teams become, the harder it is to get them to work together. It's an inverse relationship. It's like a seesaw. When one side goes up, the other has to go down. This really is the million-dollar question for any company today, isn't it? How do you get the amazing benefits of deep specialization without losing the unified teamwork you need to actually win? How do you have your cake and eat it too? Well, luckily, a pretty powerful solution started to emerge. And for a lot of companies, that solution has been agile. But, and this is really important, we have to stop thinking about agile as just a bunch of meetings and sticky notes. It's way deeper than that. It's a very specific, very deliberate, structural answer to that exact push and pull problem we were just talking about. When you boil it all down, agile is really just a system for organizing people.
It's about breaking down those traditional department walls, pulling people out of their functional silos, and putting them together into these small, self-managed teams that have all the skills they need to get the job done.
And the process itself has this really nice rhythm. It's a loop. First, an initiative owner ruthlessly decides what's the most valuable thing to work on right now. Then, the team grabs the top item off that list and sprints. They work flat out for a short cycle, maybe 1 to 4 weeks, to build something that actually works. Along the way, they have quick daily check-ins to make sure no one's stuck. And at the end of the cycle, they adapt based on real feedback. It's a continuous loop. Prioritize, build, learn, and repeat. And that's the magic trick. That's how Agile solves the paradox. It lets you get high differentiation because you have your expert engineer, your expert designer, and your expert marketer all in the same small team. But it also forces high integration through those daily meetings, shared goals, and constant collaboration. It's a structure that lets you have the best of both worlds.
Okay, so Agile is a fantastic solution at the team level. But what about the whole company? How does this fit into the bigger picture? For that, we need a holistic blueprint for the entire organization.
And a great model for this comes from a strategist named Jay Galbraith. He argued that for an organization to be truly effective, you have to get 5 different things all pointing in the same direction. He called it the STAR model.
It all starts with strategy. This is the first and most important point of the STAR. It's your North Star. It answers the simple question, where are we going and how are we going to win? Everything else, and I mean everything, has to flow from this.
Next step, you have structure. If strategy is the destination, structure is the skeleton of the vehicle that's going to get you there. It's all about how power is distributed. Who calls the shots? Is decision-making at the top or spread out? This is your classic org chart. The third point is processes. And if structure is the skeleton, then processes are the nervous system and the circulatory system. This is how information and decisions actually move through the company. Everything from how you set a budget to how a new idea goes from a sketch to a real product. Fourth, and this one is so often overlooked, is rewards. How do you motivate people to do the right things? The system has to align what's good for the employee with what's good for the company. You know the saying, what gets measured gets managed? Well, what gets rewarded gets done. It's that simple. If you talk all day about teamwork but only give bonuses to individual heroes, well, you can guess what kind of behavior you're going to get. And finally, the fifth point of the STAR is people. They're the fuel that makes the whole thing run. Your HR policies, how you hire, train, and promote, have to be completely in sync with everything else. You can't build an innovative, fast-moving startup if you're only hiring people who are good at following rigid rules. For the whole thing to work, all 5 points of this STAR have to be in perfect alignment. Which brings us right back to where we started. Remember Conway's law, that our products will end up looking like our org charts? Well, this is the master move. It's called the inverse Conway maneuver. And it flips that whole idea on its head. It says, don't let your current org chart dictate your product's architecture. Instead, design the org chart you need to get the architecture you want. It's about consciously shaping your teams in order to shape your product. Ultimately, this reframes the entire challenge. Your organization isn't just the place where you work, it's the primary tool you use to build whatever's next. So the question isn't just what your organization is today. The real question is, what do you want it to build tomorrow? And what kind of organization would you have to design to create it?